The home equity line of credit, the HELOC, one of my favorite financial products that helped me unlock passive income and real estate investing when I was just getting started. One of my favorite financial products that I still use today. That's what we're going to talk about on today's channel. Today's show is all about helping you become a more educated real estate investor. And one of my favorite financial products is a home equity line of credit, or HELOC. Now, a HELOC is a revolving line of credit based on the amount of equity in the home that you live in. We could also have it in other properties, but let's just focus on the home you live in. So in terms of the interest and the way that you can reuse it as you pay it back, it works kind of like a credit card. Very often you're going to get a bank that's going to give you a home equity line of credit, and it's going to start with a zero balance. They'll even give you debit cards and a stack of checks that you can use. Who uses checks anymore? But I guess, United States banks still kind of do. So anyway, it works like a credit card. You start with a zero balance. However, most banks will provide you with a pile of checks and a debit card that you can use for your HELOC. My advice is to, avoid using those checks and use that debit card in a very strategic way. I've written a whole book on how to use it to pay off your primary mortgage. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole just yet. If you are interested, though, we'll have a link in the description below. That book is called How to Pay Off Your Mortgage in 5 Years using one of these products, the home equity line of credit. Again, sidebar issue, but I want to talk about the HELOC today for real estate investing. The HELOC was created to supply homeowners with extra funds to do some improvements on the home that they lived in, which can be good, but again, adding on an additional room to your property or fixing up the paint on the property, and now you're adding an extra layer of debt to the home that's already not a performing asset that you live in. So let's say you own a primary residence and you want to build an addition to the property. You want to add a pool or replace a roof. You could get a HELOC, right? Based on the equity in your current home. Now, the HELOC typically has low fixed interest rates, and it uses simple interest. So it's a really high quality product that homeowners can take advantage of. Now, most banks have very few limits on what a HELOC can be used for. So it is intended for you to build up and fix your home, add some new cabinets. That's one thing, but you can use a HELOC to pay off high interest debt, or even better, to buy an investment or a big purchase. And that's what I did when I first got started in real estate investing. So what's important, though, is to understand the difference between a HELOC and a cash out refinance. Okay, this is very, very important. Now, if you're not quite following me, I have an entire video on equity and how it works and the different ways to tap into that equity. We'll have a card right up here that you can click on if you want to learn more about equity. But if you're confused about that, go and check that and watch that video and then come right back here, because I'm going to get into some important distinctions on a home equity line of credit versus a cash out refi. And I want you to be on the same page as me before I begin. Two different financial products. Very important for you to understand, okay? So on a primary home, a HELOC is a great option. Tap into your equity. You get rates that are historically low right now. It's a great time to use equity in the home that you live in, right? You're not doing anything else with that equity in your home. You're sleeping in that home, but it's not a cash flowing asset unless you're renting out a room to somebody, right? It's a liability for all intents and purposes, right? You're paying a mortgage, you're living in the property, you're paying property taxes, you're having to go to Home Depot on the weekends to fix it up. So if you've got some equity in that property, use it. Use it to help you build up a portfolio of cash flowing assets that are separate from the house you live in. Now, I know a lot of investors wonder about using the equity in their home on an investment property. Now, and in many cases, a bank is wary to offer a HELOC on an investment property, but not always. But it can be hard to find. You just have to shop around and find the right bank. But if you can't find a HELOC for your investment, don't panic. You can still access your equity to build your portfolio. Most banks would prefer to give you a cash out refinance. Now, why would they want to prefer to give you a cash out refi? Again, two different products. HELOC, cash out refi. Well, a cash out refi, they're giving you a new mortgage basically. If you understand from my equity video, it's an entirely different product, but still serves basically the same purpose. Again, the bank is just trying to cover their butts here. And a cash out refi is less risky for them on an investment. Why? Well, what you need to understand is that they are going to completely cash out the property and basically give you a new mortgage. They will be in first position, and there won't be a second HELOC floating around out there. There will be one mortgage. They will do a cash out refinance on the equity in that home, and they will give you a new 30 or 15-year mortgage, fresh mortgage, right? You're going to pay closing costs. You're going to do all that stuff. And now you're going to get a lump sum payment. They're going to give you a check for the difference. And you can go about that process. And that's one way. The other way, of course, is a HELOC. And that's my best advice, to get a plan, give yourself 3 or 4 months to really tack down the right product. Go out there and shop for it. Look for the local banks in your neighborhood that are going to be able to work with you, and then really have the funds available to get started. Start checking rates online. One way to do it is go to bankrate.com, narrow it down, find a handful of options. Again, you can look at some of the national ones, but I also suggest going door to door with some of your local banks. Very often going to be able to give you a better deal than some of the bigger banks. From there, go talk to the bankers in person. See what they can offer you. Local banks and credit unions are a great place to start, and they can offer the best rates and some of the best terms. Now, before you sign any paperwork, I want you to think about a few things. Do you have enough equity built up for this to be a valuable option? If you've only got a few $1,000s, it might not be the best way to go, right? Again, I want you to go back to my equity video so you can learn more about building equity. In my humble opinion, for investing, I would say you'd most likely want to be able to cover a down payment on a rental property with the equity that you have on hand. But that's ultimately for you to decide. And I like to think of the properties that we do at Morris Invest, and the down payment is going to be anywhere between $40,000 and $50,000 for a new construction property. So using a home equity line of credit to buy or make a down payment and then have the bank financing the rest. We work with over 60 different lenders at our company. So getting the financing for the rest beyond your HELOC is easy, right? It's that first chunk, though, that you want to be thinking about. The second thing I want you to consider is paying back the HELOC, right? Some people refer to a HELOC as a second mortgage. That means you're taking on a second payment in addition to your mortgage. So what is your strategy for paying this back? And if you're buying a rental property, the good news is that your tenant can help you pay down that loan. In the example that I just talked about, right? If you're buying, for instance, one of our new construction rental properties, the property management team is placing the tenant before you ever even buy the property, right? Before you close or right around the closing time of the property, a tenant moves in. So now that property is cash flowing. Well, then that tenant is going to pay back that loan or the loans that you've got on that property. And you're building up your nest egg, you're building up your net worth, and the tenant is paying to build up the equity in that property. Okay, that's one way to do it. However, you will not create an instant cash on cash ROI since you're using 100% of someone else's money, right? The down payment is a bank's and the remaining balance is a bank. So 100% you're using someone else's money, which is great. I absolutely say use other people's money, OPM, right? The United States is built on credit and debt. We are a debt credit society right now. Since the gold standard went away, we use debt in the United States. And all of these big banks make billions off of debt. Why shouldn't you? Why shouldn't you use these products and build up your net worth? Now, there'll be terms and there'll be payments up front. They're going to kind of eat into that cash flow at the beginning. That's fine until you start to pay down that home equity line of credit. It's not all bad, though, because you're still buying a great performing asset with strong internal rate of return. It's just something to consider when you think about it. This is not like a free property you're getting. You're going to still have to pay these back. Everything has pros and cons, and these are some of your options to weigh. And lastly, I want you to think big picture here. How will you use this money? How will it affect your overall financial snapshot? Will it become a big dent in your debt to income ratio? Will that affect your ability to grow your portfolio in other ways? If you decide to move forward with a home equity line of credit, congratulations. It's a great strategy. It's one I've used personally. I've utilized multiple times. But I will say a quick word of advice here. Don't get discouraged if you get turned down at first. Like you go to one bank and they say, no, we're not doing home equity lines of credit. And you just throw up your hands. Come on, man. Come on. Many banks are not offering HELOCs due to the pandemic and issues they've had. But a lot of them will. So you just have to shop around. Local credit unions will be offering them. It can be a great way to tap into your unused equity and grow your portfolio. Should you decide that it's a right fit for you, your finances and your goals, go out there and get a home equity line of credit. I think that it absolutely is a game changer and a great way for you to build up your rental property portfolio. Drop me any questions you have down below. We love to jump in and answer any questions you have in the comments field below. Now go out there, take action, become a real estate investor. I believe it's the #1 way to build wealth. We'll see you next time, everyone.